Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, and we're going to be working very closely with you in the days ahead. I simply, at this point, want to say to all our guests that there are strong views with respect to trade, and certainly everyone has the right to exercise their First Amendment rights, but I'd like to ask our guests in the back in the green shirts to sit down now so that they can respect the rights of others. And I think it's also worth noting I intend to ask right now about some of these transparency issues that I know people feel strongly about. Mr. Ambassador, first of all, and I touched on this is going to generate a lot of heated opinion. I think we all understand that with respect to trade. The reason I describe the changes that we've seen over the last generation is that I think it's going to be important on a bipartisan basis to find fixes to deal with those challenges. And right at the heart of it is what I believe is a need for unprecedented transparency on the trade issue. So let me ask you about a couple of specifics on it. First of all, I want to make sure that there is enough time for the public to review a Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement before the President signs it. Can you commit this morning to making the text of a Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement available to the public in advance of the President signing it?
Mr. Chairman, we completely agree that there needs to be a robust engagement strategy to involve the public in trade policy, and that's why we work so closely with Congress, why every one of our proposals is previewed by this committee, among others, why we work with the congressionally mandated advisory committee system and are broadening the membership of that committee to be more representative, why we've created a public interest advisory committee, and why we've engaged stakeholders more broadly, having stakeholder events at our rounds of negotiation and broad stakeholder calls and putting more information out to the public about our negotiating position. So we certainly agree on the importance of robust engagement there. On the particular suggestion you mentioned, those sorts of timelines have been part of TPA processes in the past. We look forward to, we're glad there's a discussion of this beginning. We'd like to look at what past practice is and on a bipartisan, bicameral basis, work with you and the rest of this committee to determine what the right timetables are.
So the public can walk out of this knowing that the text of the TPP agreement would be available to the public in advance of the President signing it. That, I believe, is yes.
Well, as I said, I think those sorts of timetables have been part of the TPA discussion in the past. There's been, as I understand, a range of practices in the past, and we'd like to work with you on a bipartisan, bicameral basis to figure out what the right timetables are.
The public also ought to be able to go to the trade representative website to find out what's going on and not to hear about it through leaks and, in effect, what amounts to a rumor mill. Can you pledge this morning to provide a clear and comprehensive description in plain English of the Trans-Pacific Partnership so that the public can be informed about these negotiations? And this needs to be posted again online promptly and I believe within 30 days. Can you commit to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We believe that it's important to have public information out there. We've been experimenting with different approaches. We put out blog posts on investment issues and environmental issues. We published a description of all the negotiating objectives of our TTIP initiative. Recently, we tweet from the negotiation rounds. We try and find lots of ways to ensure that the public has information about that, and we are happy to provide a summary of the TPP negotiations as you requested.
One other issue on transparency, I'm going to leave this with you because I want to ask a TPA question as well. At your department, there's a point person for intellectual property, there's a point person for agriculture, there's a point person for a variety of different matters. It seems to me to give transparency more prominence, there ought to be a specific person within your agency accountable. You can call him a transparency officer, you can call him whatever you want. I just don't want transparency to get short shrift ever again. Can you commit to that this morning?
Well, we have a variety of ways that we try and create transparency at the agency, and our Office of Legislative Affairs does so with the Congress. We have an Office of Public Engagement that is actively involved, reaching out to stakeholders, and an Office of Public Affairs that is putting out information for the public. And frankly, each one of our negotiators, when they're not negotiating, they're either up here consulting with you and your offices or engaging with stakeholders and the public. So your suggestion, I think, is one of many ideas that we should talk about in the context of TPA in terms of how best to ensure robust, consultative, and transparency process.
Let me ask a question about TPA, and particularly the relationship between TPP and TPA. It seems to me that an upgrade in our trade policy is going to require an upgrade to Trade Promotion Authority. And you and I have talked a bit in the past about what I call smart track, that I think would allow us to have that upgrade in the trade promotion area, greater transparency, more strategic enforcement, a variety of other steps. And it seems to me when the substance is right, the time will be right for TPA. And what we want to do is make clear to our trading partners that this committee is taking on TPA, that we're going to work for the right TPA, we're going to work on a bipartisan basis to get the right trade agreements through Congress. So my question is, will you commit this morning to work with me and the committee on a bipartisan basis to make sure that a strong 21st century Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement will be met with an equally strong 21st century TPA agreement so that we can lay out how these two critical trade policies fit together?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to work with you and this committee on a bipartisan basis and a bicameral basis with your colleagues in the House to develop TPA with as broad bipartisan support as possible.
Very good. We're getting towards the end, Ambassador Froman, and I want to get at the enforcement issue and then kind of recap, I think, particularly where we are on transparency and trade promotion authority. A lot of Americans, when they hear the debate about future trade agreements, the first thing that they say is, well, you people in Washington, D.C. aren't enforcing the ones we got. So why are we talking about new ones before we enforce the ones that we have? And, you know, too often it seems that when we have a trade agreement, we honor it. Our trading partners don't. There are a variety of excuses. They say that they may not have resources to do it. They may say that there are political concerns. But at the end of the day, we don't have the enforcement effort that is so important. And our experiences with China and Korea and Russia and others make clear that we lose out if we let agreements go into force before countries are able to comply with the commitments that they've made. So my question on the enforcement issue is outline what steps your office is willing to take, the USTR, to put in place a new commitment to trade enforcement.
Well, we are very committed to trade enforcement, and we're happy to talk about what further steps we can take. I've mentioned that we've brought more WTO cases. We brought cases against China at twice the rate before. We've brought the first ever case on a labor issue vis-a-vis Guatemala, and we're continuing to pursue that. And we've created this Interagency Trade Enforcement Center at USTR with great support from the Commerce Department as well as from other departments, and that has allowed us to put together more complex cases than we've ever been able to put together before, where we have people from all over the government, a whole-of-government approach with people with language resources, country expertise, domain subject knowledge, and are able to put together these very complicated cases and bring them that can have a systemic impact. So we are very much focused, and we agree with you completely that part of the deal of negotiating new agreements is to ensure that we are monitoring, implementing, and enforcing our existing agreements. And we're very much focused on doing that.
And there is no question in my mind that you all are stepping up the effort to enforce trade laws. And in particular, I was pleased with the work your people did on the critical minerals issue, which I think is almost a model for how to tackle a major trade enforcement issue. I just want you to know that even though I think you're stepping it up, I think there's a lot more to do. And the reason why is that for those of us who have been supportive of trade, and I've voted for every market opening agreement since I've been in public service, we have to have a better response to people who say, why are you talking about new trade agreements until you have tougher enforcement of the ones that are on the books? So let's just kind of recap on a couple of issues where I think we are. On the transparency issue, and you and I went back and forth on some of the semantics of trade law. The American people are going to insist on being able to review the TPP agreement before the president signs it. and so am I. And I think that the law is very much in sync with that. On the TPA issue, it just seems to me that, and I think we agree on this, and I'm just sort of recapping now, we need a TPA upgrade in order to reflect the needs of a modern trade agreement. And for the people that I have the honor to represent at home, 1 out of 6 jobs in Oregon depends on international trade. The trade jobs often pay better than do the non-trade jobs. They reflect a higher level of productivity. So as we walk through these issues of the future, some of which I now call smart track, and we're going to be fleshing that out in the future. I just want it understood we're going to be working closely in partnership with you. I think you know that there are strong views on this committee. I happen to think we can forge a bipartisan agreement to do trade policy right here in the United States Senate. And if you'd like to have the last word, we're happy to give it to you. You've been a patient person today, has been something of an unorthodox day, even by Senate scheduling, and we appreciate your patience.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and we very much look forward to working with you as the legislative process on TPA proceeds, and very much want to partner with you on that. And on the transparency, our goal is to release the terms of the agreement as soon as we can. And once we have an agreement, we'll want to make sure that the terms are public as early as possible. But of course, that means we have to reach an agreement. And that's where our focus is right now, is in trying to reach the best possible agreement for the American people on TPP and on TTIP.
I understand that, and the reason that I have focused on it, I just came off 7 town hall meetings at home in Oregon. This comes up all the time, and it reflects, I listed 3 or 4 of what I call the generational changes that we've seen in trade, policy. And I remember supporting those agreements in the 1990s, had a full head of hair and rugged good looks and that sort of thing. And of course, nobody was online and expecting elected officials to give ongoing information. And when I talk about transparency, and I want to emphasize this point, nobody is talking about making available what I call proprietary information. In other words, if you're talking about Coca-Cola, of course you wouldn't make the secret sauce in Coke, you wouldn't make that available. That's proprietary information. But terms of a trade agreement that affect various policy issues with respect to Coca-Cola and other products is what I think the American people are going to insist on. And I think based on our conversations that we're going to be pursuing that together and being able to pursue it on a bipartisan basis. So the hearing record here in the Senate Finance Committee is going to remain open until May 5th. I thank you again, Ambassador, and look forward to working with you in the days ahead. Finance Committee is adjourned.